Welcome everybody to the Heart Coherence Collaborative. What an absolute honor it is today. We have somebody that really needs no introduction, but who our community really looks up to. Personally, I want to thank you because you're somebody who really taught me the benefits of heart coherence at like 10 years ago. You made heart coherence really understandable to me, and you're just truly a pioneer. So we couldn't be more happy to have you here with us.
Wow, it's I'm going to say good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone, wherever you're watching this, whatever time zone. Kyle and Leah, it is an honor and a pleasure to be with you today. I'm coming to you from the command deck of the mothership. No, it's our Studio B just outside of Santa Fe, New Mexico today, and I'm excited to explore where we're going with this. It's completely unscripted. It's a dance. I'm going to follow your lead in this dance, and I'm excited to see where we go today. But thank you for your kind words in my introduction.
Yeah, so let's dance. Our group, about so many people, heart-centered beings, they're about to go on a 30-day journey where we do heart coherence every single day together as a community for 30 days. With your wisdom in heart coherence, I'd love it if you just motivate our community on some of the benefits they will receive by taking this deep dive into the heart.
Well, we can sum that up in a single sentence. Everything goes better with coherence.
Yeah, that's that easy.
Yeah.
You could have that on a t-shirt. You could have a bumper sticker. Everything's better with coherence.
Yes.
So, you know, the science of heart-brain coherence is really fascinating to me, and it's a new frontier. And I believe it is probably the foundation of the next frontier in the sciences. You know, we have studied so much of our external world. We know more about the climate on Mars than we do about the functioning of the relationship between the heart and the brain. We're only beginning to understand and how that relationship is influenced by factors that we never used to think that we were connected to, like the sun, like the moon. I mean, the scientific community never used to think used to believe this. Intuitively, indigenous peoples have always told us that we are deeply connected to the world around us. We're deeply connected to the cosmos, to waves of energy, periodic, cyclic waves of energy that roll through the universe on predictable scales. Some of them are 12,000 year scales. Some of them are 5,000 year scales. And they actually have built calendars to track these relationships. These are our indigenous ancestors. Well, science is only catching up with this in the last few years. And our friends and our family at the Institute of Heart Math have pioneered a lot of this research. And they were the first. I'm not a Heart Math employee. I have been affiliated with Heart Math pretty much since about a year after their inception on the West Coast in the early 1990s. And so we began working together as colleagues. We've toured together, we've fundraised together. And now we, in addition to the work, we've become good friends, and I consider them family. And they are pioneering the research into the power of the human heart beyond simply being a pump in the body. You know, you can build a machine to do the pumping. But what we now know is that pumping blood in our bodies, while the heart does it really well, it is possibly the least of what our heart actually does. That the heart is sending the signals to the brain, telling the brain what chemistry to release into the body. And the heart is actually creating hormones that are flooding our body at very specific times in very specific ways. Well, I think one of the big discoveries, when I was a kid in school, 1950s, 1960s, early 70s, I was taught that the brain is the master organ in the body. And we all know the brain's important. We've only got one of them. Obviously, it's important. But what the studies are showing is the brain does what I've just shared, that it actually receives the signals that tells it what to send in the body from the heart. And this is where it gets really interesting, because the heart generates those signals based upon our perceptions, on the way that we feel about our relationship to ourselves, our relationship to the world around us. Do we feel safe? Do we feel a sense of well-being? Are we in constant vigilance? Are we in constant fight or flight? And the beauty of what heart math science is showing us is that regardless of what our answer to those questions are, is that we are unique. As far as we know in life on earth anyway, we are uniquely situated and uniquely given the ability to self-regulate our answer to those questions. We don't have to depend upon the world around us for our sense of well-being. We don't have to depend upon the world around us for our sense of safety, because if we do, that's where the suffering comes from. Now, I'm a scientist, primary degree is in the earth sciences, and I'm accustomed to looking at life from a systems perspective, and also from about a 40,000 foot view, looking at big cycles of time. And what the geology of the world tells us is that we are living a unique period in the history of our planet, something we have not seen for about 12,000 years. We have no conscious memory of the kinds of changes that we're experiencing, including geophysical changes that influence the heart. We're also living a convergence of rare cycles that include economy and finance and human conflict. Things that we typically do not think about in terms of cycles so much. All these things, and climate, all these things are converging in our lives right now. And the reason I'm saying this is because we've been conditioned to hinge our sense of well-being on the world out there. So, you come home from work and you have a good day, and the kids are in a good mood and they got good grades, and the 401k looks good, and the retirement and the savings for college education, and the neighbors are good. I mean, everything's good, so we feel good. But if any of those things go awry, if our sense of well-being depends upon something out there, we are living a time when out there is in total chaos. And our ancestors told us through the cycles, they knew it would be, because it always is. Humans are capitalizing, some humans are capitalizing on that chaos to create even greater chaos, greater conflict, greater fear, certainly, and greater uncertainty, speaking to an even greater degree how important it is for us to take our sense of well-being off of autopilot and away from what's happening in the world out there, and claiming our power, and claiming the responsibility that comes with that power to self-regulate our bodies in a way so that it doesn't change what's happening in the world out there. It changes how we respond to what's happening in the world. And it actually determines whether or not, the changes we're seeing in the world, we can talk about this, it's in chaos. The world's in chaos. Everybody knows that. That's no secret. The chaos isn't going to last forever. It's unsustainable. For this little window of time, this brief period of time, the question is, we're in it. And the only way out of it is to go through it. We've got to go through it. Do we go through it with a soft landing as individuals and families and communities and societies and nations? Or do we come through it with a hard landing? And we have the opportunity to determine that for ourselves on an individual basis, what that means to our psychology, to our physiology, to our mental health, to our spiritual well-being. And what we're doing right here, heart-brain coherence, and the science underlying that, is a foundation that allows us to have that choice in our lives. And many people believe that there is no choice. So the world is changing, and again, we can talk about those. Our planet is changing in ways that science only acknowledged about 3 weeks ago. For example, that the inner core of our planet now has come to a rest. It is the rotation of the inner core of the Earth within the magma of the outer core. The inner core is relatively solid, floating in this magma, and it is the rotation that creates the magnetic fields of the planet that shield us from incoming cosmic radiation, solar wind, all of those things. Well, the heart is the strongest biomagnetic generator in the body, and we are very closely linked to the magnetic fields of our planet. Now that the inner core has come to a rest, those magnetic fields are becoming weaker and weaker, and that has an influence on all of us to the degree that we can harmonize with the planet we live on. As the planet goes through the changes, we are going to come through those changes with less stress. Those people that don't know how to harmonize with the planet, so they've become accustomed to living and feeling from the heart, subconsciously, in a certain way, based on those magnetic fields are shifting. If we cannot move and shift with those changes, that's stressful to the body. So everything we're talking about, there's geophysics behind it. There is climate science behind it. And if people aren't interested in any of that, it simply is good for us, because as we harmonize the heart and the brain, what we do is we awaken the opportunity to strengthen so many systems in our body. For example, our immune response is strengthened through a relatively short period of time of this heart-brain coherence. Our longevity enzymes that stop the damage to the DNA and actually heal the damage that's occurred and then begin to reverse that damage is all linked through the ability to self-regulate these systems. Our ability to create resilience to change. I mean, the world is in constant flux right now. And heart-brain coherence is directly implicated in the resilience that allows us to move through these changes in a healthy way. So there are so many benefits. There are so many benefits that the science documents over 1,300 positive biochemical reactions that result from heart-brain coherence. So I know we don't want to go through all 1,300 of those. I tried doing that in a workshop once, and what I discovered was people didn't want to do it. So we're just touching on some of these, and we can certainly zero in on any that have tweaked your interest as we're having this conversation. But the ability, I just want to emphasize this: I'm going to look into the camera to our community. Instead of saying we, I'm going to say you. I want to thank every one of you for being with us today, and I want to thank you for all you're doing to be the best version of yourself on this planet today, and to encourage the ability to do just that. What I want to say to you is that you are the only form of life that we know of today that is inherently born with the ability, or born with the inherent ability, to self-regulate your biology at will, on demand, when you choose. You can sit down in a chair in a moment in time and say, in this moment, I choose to create a stronger immune system because of what we're seeing in the world, what's out there. I choose to create greater resilience, not to stop the change, but so that I can embrace the change in a healthy way and model that for my children and for my family and for my community and my society. The only form of life that can do that. And what you are learning through this challenge and through these initiatives is the foundation. It's not the only tool. It is a foundational tool upon which you can build all of these other tools. It begins with harmonizing the neural network in your heart with the neural network in your brain. Two organs become one very potent system, and you are the one that is triggering that possibility. You're triggering that response. So I wanted to say that, and then I'm going to turn it over to Kyle and Leah, and let's see where we want to go from here.
Well, I think it's a perfect time if you would walk us through the 3 steps of harmonizing the heart and the brain.
Okay. You want me to do that right now?
I'd love that.
Okay. So when I didn't know we were going to do that right now. So when we talk about self-regulation, you know, the concept is not new. It has been held and preserved in ancient indigenous traditions and sacred teachings and writings for thousands of years. The writings have been hidden. People have been killed, preserving and passing on this information. What the Institute of Heart Math has done is they have taken the best science of the modern world and married that with the practices that have been preserved in some of our most ancient and cherished spiritual traditions. They've married these together in the laboratory, where they can actually check out the effectiveness of what works and what doesn't, so that they could hone this amazing ability into something that is simple, straightforward. We can use it every day in our lives. They recommend a minimum of 3 minutes of creating the coherence based upon 3 steps. The first step is to shift our awareness from our thinking mind into our feeling heart. This is the first thing that they invite us to do. And one of the ways, this is the 40th year I've offered this work in one form or another. And one of the things I've found in the indigenous traditions, from the shamans in the Andes of southern Peru to the curanderos in the Yucatan, to the Tibetan monks and nuns, and the sadhus in India and Nepal, and all through the desert Southwest. All these traditions are heart-based traditions, and they all begin by shifting the focus from the mind into the heart by simply touching the heart center in a way that's comfortable for them. And I know you all are familiar, Buddhist traditions, you've often seen the mudra, where the back of your thumb fits beautifully. It nestles right into the sternum. It's a perfect spot right there. And when I was in Tibet, leading groups in Tibet, this is what the monks would tell us. It's the constant gentle pressure that they feel on that part of their body that calls their awareness to the place where they feel the pressure. And when I'm in the Middle East, something very similar, they don't do the mudra, they do a full hand over the heart. And in the Yucatan, the Mayan natives, they will greet you with a full hand touching the heart, or you can simply just take a index or middle finger and just gently touch your sternum. And the key is that your awareness is always going to go to the place where you feel the touch. And that's the first step. Because if you ask people to shift their awareness from their mind into their heart, often what people will do is they will say, okay, I'm in my heart, now what? But they're actually still in their head thinking about what it would be like if they were in their heart rather than actually being in the heart. This is why it's important to, in some way, create a sensation near your heart center. Now, one of the questions that we get a lot is the heart is actually over here, the human heart, more over in this location. This is the energetic center in the human heart, and that's why we're using this, and it's in direct communication with the physical heart. So the first step is to shift the awareness from the thinking mind to the feeling heart. Second step is to slow the breathing a little bit slower than usual. Now, I know a lot of people are accustomed to taking a deep breath, but this is, to optimize this is even a little bit different. And I don't want it to be complex, but I want you to understand why we're doing what we're doing. It is the ratio of the inhale to the exhale of the breath that triggers the sympathetic or the parasympathetic nervous system. Parasympathetic nervous system is the relaxation response. That's the response that you want when you are harmonizing the heart and the brain. And to do that, you want to exhale for a period of time longer than you have just inhaled. That's different for everyone. So I'm here in the high desert, a little over 7,000 feet above sea level. My lung capacity is a little bit different than somebody that, maybe lives at sea level. So we have to figure this out for ourselves. It's not how long, it's the ratio. So what I typically do is I invite people maybe to breathe in on the count of 4 and breathe out on the count of 6, but you can adjust that for yourself, as long as, and the key to be effective is you just want the exhale to last for a period of time longer than the inhale. So we can do this. Just take a couple of breaths together. We're not actually doing the meditation now, but we're going through the steps. So, and just invite everybody first, allow your awareness to go into your heart center. Just touch your heart. And one of the things I want to say about this, I'm just going to say this right now. A lot of people believe that you've got to have the right environment to do this. When you most need heart coherence is probably going to be during the times that are least conducive to the heart coherence. They're going to be in times where you are stressed, where there's maybe chaos around you, where you've got to make decisions, maybe life and death decisions. If you've just come upon an auto accident and nobody else is there and you're the only one there, and you need to know what to do to help someone else, you've got to be at your best. You've got to be the best. And you can do this very, very, very quickly. So the point is, you don't have to have the door closed, the lights dim, the candle and the incense with the yoga mat and the bells and the bowls and the gongs and the chimes and track one of Stephen Halpern's Higher Ground playing in the background. It's cool if you can. And we all like that. But where you find your power and your mastery is the ability to create the conditions inside of your body that serve you in that moment, regardless of what the world around you is showing you. Because if you wait for the world to provide the conditions, you've given your power away to that world. So for that reason, that's why I think this is important. We don't have any music going now or anything like that. But the first thing is you shift your awareness from your thinking mind, your feeling heart. And then when you breathe, and we'll go through a couple of breaths. I'll do four counts on the inhale, 6 on the exhale. And if people need to adjust that for themselves, feel free. Okay, so first breath, inhale. And release. Breathe again, inhale. Release. And you just feel that shift in your body almost immediately. Inhale. And release. Okay. So it is that rhythm, to the best of your ability, if you can maintain whatever rhythm you've established for yourself, if you can maintain that through the remainder of the coherence practice. Now, I want to be really clear about something. Simply focusing on your heart does not bring you into coherence. Simply focusing on your heart and slowing the breath does not bring you into coherence. It sets the stage for the coherence. These are necessary steps to create the coherence. Then the third step is possibly one of the most mysterious. I think for some people, it can be the greatest challenge. And what people tell me is it becomes easier the more they do it. And that is to do something that we're not conditioned to do in our society, to have a feeling because you choose to have a feeling rather than waiting for the world to give you the reason to have the feeling. We're conditioned to respond to what the world gives us. So if I invite you to feel a positive emotion, to just feel that regardless of what's happening in your life. You know, maybe the house is a wreck and the finances are a wreck and, you know, and the kids are having a bad day. And people say, well, how can I have that positive feeling? That's your workshop. That's where you find your mastery. And this is, I think, where some of the greatest growth comes from. Or what the scientists, and I'll just say the lead scientist at the Institute of Heart Math right now is Dr. Roland McCready. He is a beautiful man. He's a dear friend. He's a dear brother. We've had a lot of fun together. I just realized my earpiece is unplugged. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Sometimes it creates an echo if that's not happening. Okay. So yeah, Roland is a brilliant scientist. He's multidisciplinary scientist. He and I, we've done projects together, we've toured together, we've fundraised together, and he's just a brilliant man. And one of the amazing things, I think that of all the amazing things that he has shared with us is the ability to self-regulate, to create this sense of well-being. And what he and the researchers at the Institute of Heart Math have found is a positive emotion is important, and they have narrowed down to one or some combination that works pretty much for everybody. So almost everyone responds if you can feel a feeling of gratitude for anything or anyone, or care for anything or anyone, or appreciation or compassion. So appreciation, gratitude, care, and compassion. If you can choose one of those. Now, compassion's a little tricky because it means different things to different people. There's a whole Tibetan Buddhist science behind compassion. I typically, with live audiences, I will go with gratitude. It's pretty easy for everyone to find something to feel deeply grateful for: their lives, their health, their children. Just being together in a room with 1,000 other people is a pretty cool thing to be grateful for. So this is the third step. In the presence of heart focus, number one, and of the regulated breathing with the ratio, number two, to feel the feeling of gratitude in this case. And what that does is it begins to send a signal between the neural network discovered in 1991 in the human heart, between the neural network of the heart and the neural network of the brain. We all know the brain's a big neural network. A lot of people don't think about the heart that way. And this is what became the foundation for the heart math work. 40,000 specialized cells were discovered in the heart in 91, published in 94 in the Journal of Neurocardiology. If people haven't checked it out and you want to, you can look that up. The idea that we can harmonize these two neural networks into one potent system. This is a very radical idea that we can do it on demand when we choose. And the first two steps set the stage. The third step is what actually sends the signal from the heart to the brain. And when it is done optimally, that signal is a very low frequency signal, 0.1 hertz, 0.1 hertz. Can't even hear that. It's typically below audio, human audio. Whales communicate with this. It's a universal frequency. If you look at the magnetic field line spectrum frequencies of our planet, so this isn't the human magnetics that are in the atmosphere, this is underneath our feet. The first spike that comes from that magnetic field line resonance frequency is 0.1 hertz. And I say this as a geologist, it's fascinating to me because it means that when we create that gratitude and we send that 0.1 hertz from the heart to the brain, not only are we harmonizing the systems within our body, we are harmonizing us, our body, to the magnetic field of the planet we live on. And what a powerful thing to do. This is where our healing begins. We're bringing us into alignment with the fundamental magnetic field of our planet. This is why I began speaking about what I was early on, because that magnetic field is shifting. And if we cannot find our way to navigate those shifts and to create harmony, I'm not talking about balance, I'm talking about harmony, a harmonization between us and those fields, wherever they're going, to the degree that we can do that, that's going to minimize our suffering in terms of the stress that our body feels trying to keep up with the changes in the world. People that don't know how to do this, they're still operating under the old parameters. Meanwhile, the energetics of our planet are shifting, and you can imagine that the discord of trying to hold your focus and your balance in a world that no longer exists, while the world is marching on to find a new harmony. So this is I think one of the most powerful benefits in terms of mental health. I know a lot of people are I did a live event recently and I said, how many people in this room are having sleep issues? And I can't say every single hand, but I can tell you from the stage, almost the entire room. I didn't see any hands that did not go up, but I could not see all 1,000 people.
Wow.
There had to be somebody in there that didn't, but almost the entire room's having sleep issues. Almost the entire room is feeling low-level anxiety, unsourced. What that means is, we can have discord in the family. Partnerships are stretched to the max right now. Even healthy relationships, they're being stretched, they're being tested right now, and that's a source of stress. Certainly traffic, finances. If you tune in at all to global events, The way they are portrayed through legacy media certainly is stressful. So all of those create this low level anxiety. And the thing is, all of those events, we're being given reasons to be stressed and afraid. We're given no resolution. So what that means is the stress and the anxiety goes on and on and on. And our bodies aren't really set up to do that. We can do it. We're just not set up to do it very well. We're set up to deal with it in brief periods of time so that we can resolve it and then find some kind of homeostasis, some kind of balance. Our society right now, we're being fed the stressors, no pathway to resolution. And that is resulting in a lot of low-level anxiety for people who typically have never had it, for people who are prone to anxiety or have trauma that has never been healed, or even PTSD kinds of things. Those are being lit up, where I've talked to people that say, I thought I healed this. And I thought we were done with this, because they went through therapy, they went through counseling, maybe they've had some kind of a pharmacological intervention. There's a lot of psychedelics that are being used to help people deal, ketamine, and for everything from ketamine to plant medicine to everything else. The point is, people say, okay, I thought I had healed this, and now all of a sudden these issues are lighting up again, and they're saying, WTF? What's going on? I'm also seeing this. We've all experienced a lot of loss. Every human on this planet has experienced loss. Some of the loss has been the loss of loved ones. I lost my mom during COVID. I know a number of other speakers and authors doing exactly what I do. We're all friends. We lost our parents, and we didn't talk about it until after. And then all of a sudden we said, man, I didn't know you lost your mom the same time I lost my mom, and to COVID. And that was happening. If you've never lost a loved one, we all have lost a way of life. Our world has changed. Everyone has lost something. And the point is, as a society, we've never been given the opportunity to mourn our loss. And when I say mourn, it doesn't have to be a big public outpouring. It simply is the acknowledgement that the world has changed, and the world that we knew is gone. Can't go back to a world that no longer exists. And just to take a breath and acknowledge what it is about that world that we miss. I've worn cowboy boots since I was 4 years old, and I never throw them away. I have a closet full of boots. Some of those boots are 60 years old. They're over 60 years old. They're 66 years old, actually. And one of the things I've always appreciated is little mom and pop shoe shops. I could walk down the street, and if the heel comes off my boot, I could duck into a little mom and pop shoe shop, and they would put a new heel cap on me while I wait for 10 or 15 minutes. Those are gone. A lot of them didn't make it. They were dying anyway, and a lot of them didn't make it through COVID. Now, I know there's some, in some cities, they are becoming fewer and further between. They're harder to find right now. And maybe that's a silly little example, but a lot of the little mom and pop shops that provided services are gone, and I miss those. And I openly acknowledge that I miss those. They're being replaced by big box stores. You go into one store and it has everything. It's got the groceries over here, and the hardware over here, and the pharmacy over there, and it's all in, under one roof, regulated by one company. And that's very different than the personal relationships, certainly, that I used to have. When I'd walk in and say, while they were fixing my boots, I'd say, how's the kids? And how's your mom? And how's the family? And, it's those personal connections, I think, is one of the things I miss. So we've never been given the opportunity to mourn those things. The point is, and there is a point to all of this, I'm not just rambling, that we all have lost something. And that loss is a form of stress. Many people, it's unresolved. Unresolved stress creates this low level anxiety. And everything that we're talking about here are harmonizing the heart and the brain, of the many benefits, far beyond what we could do well in a single program here. One of the most powerful benefits is it is a de-stressor. And it is de-stressing on levels that you may not even be aware exist. So we all know about the stress. We got a fight in the family, tough day with the kids, traffic on the 680 freeway in California. We all know about that. But even if you don't have any of that, and I've had people say to me, oh, I have no stress in my life. My life is completely stress-free. And if that's true, you are a rare individual. What I'll say to you is this: when you drink water that is been processed by a city water plant, there are impurities that have been put into that water. Your body will work to balance out those impurities so that that water can serve you in your cells. That's a form of stress. When you eat food that is cooked in rancid oils, which is most of the fried foods that we see, and certainly in fast foods, and even in some very nice restaurants, the tempuras and things like that. Unless they're really, really well done, your body has to work to balance out the pH, to balance out the effect of what high temperatures do to the cooking oils in your body. Those are all forms of stress. So we're stressed on levels we may not even be aware of. Heart-brain coherence once a day, a minimum of 3 minutes a day, it actually relieves that stress. It gives your body a breather, gives your body a break, at least for the minimum of 3 minutes, and you don't have to stop with that 3 minutes. You can go beyond. But it gives your body the opportunity to have a little vacation from that stress for the period of time that you are in that coherent state. And that stress relief speaks volumes to the rest of your body. So in addition to enhancing your immune response and awakening longevity enzymes and creating resilience to change, I want to talk about resilience in just a minute. The greater resilience to change, it is a stress reliever. And that stress relief often is the underlying factor in anxiety. So people that are using heart-brain coherence will find that they may mitigate. I'm not going to say it goes away 100% for the rest of your life, but it mitigates that anxiety response because the stress triggering it has been relieved. It's like a little relief valve. And you can do it, multiple times per day. I don't recommend doing heart-brain coherence while you're driving or operating heavy machinery, because you need to have your awareness focused on driving or operating that heavy machinery. So you always want to be in a place where you feel safe. If you can, the door's closed and relatively quiet, but you can do this. And I've done this. There was a time in my life. So I lived in a rural community in northern New Mexico. And there are miles and miles between towns in the mountains, often no cell service. You can't call anybody if you're in trouble. And because of my travel schedule, I come into the airport late at night. And by the time I get up to my home, I'm 4 hours from the airport. So it can be 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. Not many people on the road during those times. And often there was a period of time I was the first on an accident that had happened just before I got there. And of course, your heart's racing and you're ready to jump into action. And I didn't go through a full 3-minute heart-brain coherence, but what I did do was I checked my breath, focused my awareness in my heart, and I felt gratitude for whatever service I was about to render. And I have to tell you, it made a difference, at least during the time I could be present for the people or the person that needed me in the ways that I've been trained in first aid. I carry a small hospital in the back of my truck just for this reason. I say, if I'm going to help, I might as well have everything I need. I've got everything. I've got splints and staplers and stitches and we got the bleeding control and everything. So, but you can't use those if you're freaked out. And so for me, this was a way initially to be at my best. Now, after the emergency, the EMTs would finally arrive, or after we got help for everyone, then I'd be sitting alone in my truck. And that's when the emotions happen. And the same coherence that prepared me to be at my best also helped me to find that harmony and to acknowledge the stress, to acknowledge not just pack it away, but to acknowledge the intensity and the magnitude of what has just happened. Often a life is in the balance, and there's usually tears that come with that, and there is a recalibration of the heart-brain coherence. Now, there's a precedent for this, because the techniques that we're talking about right now, heart math, first of all, the techniques and the sensors are in most major medical institutions. Most major hospitals have the EM, the M wave technology, the LED sensors, where they can tell when someone's in coherence, and they're in most major hospitals. They're also being used now in pilot programs with refugees from the Syrian conflict who are now in Jordan in the refugee camps. Some of them have been their children being born into refugee camps. All they know is life in a refugee camp. And if they are in constant fight or flight, there's a physiological response. They have cognitive impairment. Their brains are smaller. Their bodies are smaller because their body's in constant fight or flight. Their body is not in healing and regeneration and rejuvenation and growth. By learning the heart-brain coherence, they're giving their bodies the opportunity to relieve the stress and the fight or flight and to move into those healthier physiological and psychophysiological states. So if it works for them in a refugee camp, it's going to work for you where you want to apply it. That works for me where I want to apply it. I want to just say, before we move on from this, there's a direct relationship between heart-brain coherence and resilience. So, and it has to do with something called heart rate variability, HRV. So and I apologize if this is redundant, if you've already done this on one of these podcasts, or if people already know this, but I think everyone knows every heartbeat, you can boom, 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 and there's a little complex of waves called the QRS complex. And that peak, from the time that one peak happens, boom, boom, to the next, boom, boom, to the next, the time between those peaks varies. And it varies just by a little bit, by milliseconds. But when we are young, when we're kids, it varies a lot. There's tremendous variability from one peak to the next. And we all know kids have a lot of resilience. It's easy for kids if they change schools in the middle of the year, they move their parents in the military, and they move from military base to military base, country to country. It's not easy, but kids can adapt pretty quickly to that. As we get older, the term is we get set in our ways. This is the term we hear in society. What it's actually saying is we are losing our heart rate variability. From one beat to the next, each beat varies. That is heart rate variability. As we get older, the time from one beat to the next becomes more and more stable. It becomes more even. And with that, we lose heart rate variability. We have less variability because the time from one to the time to the next becomes very, very close. When we lose heart rate variability, we lose our resilience to change. So the formula is simply this: heart-brain coherence creates greater heart rate variability, creates greater resilience to change in our lives. And the beauty is that we can change this literally in a heartbeat, regardless of age. You can be any age, and you can regain heart rate variability consciously by applying these techniques. By doing that, we are creating greater resilience to change in our lives. This world is all about change. If you wanted to incarnate into a world that was stable and easy and no change, this is the wrong time in history. So it is another tool to put into our toolbox that really helps with all these things. So this is the third step. The third step is the ability to create the gratitude in the presence of heart focus, in the presence of a slower breath, as if the breath is coming from the heart. And it's these three steps. This has been a long answer to a short question. It's these three steps that come together and are scientifically borne out under laboratory conditions to create this condition that we call heart-brain coherence. And now you know a little bit about why it's important, because of our relationship to the planet we live on. But even if you didn't know that, or you didn't want to know that, just in your everyday life, you just feel better. The bottom line, you feel better, you function better, you sleep better. And I think one of the questions people ask me is, when is the best time to do coherence? I don't think there is a best time. My personal practice, I do it at least once a day at night before I sleep, because I think what better way to go into a rejuvenating, regenerative sleep than to do it in the presence of coherence in the body. Now, if I know I'm going to have a tough phone call, and we had a lot of those during COVID, event producers had hundreds of thousands of dollars on the line for a venue, maybe in another country, that depend on me being on that stage. And the hotel maybe was open, but the borders to the country were closed. And we would be in conversations, and the venue would say, well, you must come because the hotel is open. And I would say, yes, and your country won't let me come in. And they would say, not my problem. and you can see where those create stressful conversations. So being in coherence, and this is a really powerful tool in human communication. It's used in marriage and family counseling, is coherence techniques, used in adolescent counseling, where there's a lot of hurt and resentment between parents and children, or even between siblings. When you go into the coherence, one of the really interesting things is that when we begin to listen to another person from our heart rather than our brain, we become more objective. And in that objectivity, we take things less personally. If you're listening to someone communicate with you, and you're listening through your left and your right brain, your left and your right brain is all about polarities. It's all about good, bad, right, wrong, worthy, not worthy, failure, success. What those people are saying to you, you're going to hear through the lens of those polarities, and that's where you can become reactive. Nobody wants to think of themselves as a failure or as bad or wrong. When you listen to through your heart, the words don't change from the other person, but how you feel about those words change, because it's no longer personal, and you're not hearing it through the ego loops, the ego filters. And it empowers you to act consciously rather than reactively. So rather than firing back a defense for what it is that you just heard, you are at least better situated to listen, and then to actually formulate clear and objective responses. Now, this is important in talking to another person. It's really important when you're talking to yourself, because when you are having the self-dialogue, if that self-dialogue is going through the ego loops of the brain, you're never going to win. You're always going to come out on the short side of that. So when you find yourself on a long walk, or going for your morning run or exercise, or whatever it is you're doing, and you start hearing that voice that is so critical, that is a voice coming through the left and the right brain. Shift your awareness into your heart, and you'll be amazed at how differently that conversation unfolds, and the power that you find to objectively participate in that conversation. So I'll stop there and see what question number 2 might be.
Yeah, well, that was great. The one thing that I would just love to hear you touch on, because you really have done a great job explaining the physiological benefits, is also the magical benefits. One thing that really cemented this practice in for me was when I started doing it, there was all these amazing things in regards to intuition. And I love you sharing the story about your mother when you used to call each other every day, and you'd call each other at the same times.
Yeah, well, it ties into what I just said. When we are functioning, first of all, I don't want to demonize the brain, and a lot of people do. And a lot of people in this genre, they say, "Oh man, forget about the mind. It's all about the heart." We are integrated beings. We need our mind, we need our brain, we need our heart, and we need them for specific tasks at different times in our lives. We get to choose. That's the self-regulation. We get to choose when, if you are working in Silicon Valley on a software for a nuclear trigger for, the West's atomic arsenal, you want to be very focused and you want to be very precise. And the left brain is really good for engineering and doing things like that. But intuition is a big part of our lives. And I was at the conference back in the 90s. There was a very famous, well, he's got his own TV program now. His name is Michio Kaku. He's a physicist. Probably see him. He's got long white hair. Just a really, really awesome man, a great intellect. And during the conference, we were speaking about the power of intuition, and what he said rang very true for me. He said, even the best scientists using, the best of the scientific method, they will generally begin with an intuition, an intuitive hit that some relationship exists, and then they'll use science to explore and bear out that relationship. But it begins with intuition. So even the left brain people that say they never use intuition are probably using intuition. So intuition, what is intuition? And I'm going to take about a half a step back on this. Intuition is only possible because of our divinity. And I'm going to define the term divinity because it's not what most people think about. Most people believe in Western society that divinity has something to do with religion, because religion has kind of hijacked that term. But if you go to a dictionary, you look at the true definition of divinity, it simply is the ability, our ability as humans, to transcend perceived human limitations. That's all divinity is. Transcend, perceive. They may not even be real. We perceive them. They're limitations we've put onto ourselves because of our conditioning. So divinity is our ability to transcend perceived human limitations. Divinity is more than our thoughts, conscious thoughts. It's more than our subconscious mind. A lot of people think, okay, man, subconscious, that's it. It all originates there. Not true. There is something called superconscious. We have our thoughts, we have subconscious mind, we have something called the superconscious mind. Divinity and superconscious mind are strongly linked. It is the part of us that is eternal. It is the part of us that is all-knowing. It's the part of us that when you ask a musician, where did that music just come from? Often, and you'll see this in YouTube interviews, they'll say, I don't know. It came through me. They don't say, I made it. They say, it came through me. This is their divinity coming through them because they've allowed an opening to bring it through. We're artists like Van Gogh. I just went to an interactive Van Gogh exhibition that's traveling America. I know many of our viewers have probably seen it as well. Obviously, when you look at his writings, oh, I'm sorry. Sorry about that. I had that turned on because we have a family emergency happening, and I was checking calls this morning and I forgot to turn it off. So the point is that the divinity is part of us. You cannot separate yourself from your divinity. Your divinity is always with you. You can deny your divinity through free will. You can certainly deny it. It can be taken from you through programming as a child, from people that tell you you are a powerless victim of your world. And there are chemicals that can separate us from our divinity through dissociation. But once you remove everything that's not true, once you remove the lies that have been fed to us, all that remains is our divinity. Intuition is a part of that divinity. Intuition and divinity, you cannot separate them. So when we have those moments of intuition, now, Kyle, you reference a story that I've told sometimes. When my mom was alive, I had an agreement every Sunday, wherever I was on the planet, I would call her and we'd just check in every Sunday. And it didn't happen every single time, but often it would happen that I would pick up the phone, and this before cell phones, I'd pick up a landline to call my mom, and my mom was already on the phone. I hadn't dialed the number. And I know many of you have had that they used to have that same experience. If you, I don't know that it happens much with cell phones anymore. It works on a different principle. But I'd pick up the phone and my mom would say, Greg, and I'd say, yeah. She goes, I was just calling you. And I said, I know, I was going to call you. And the point is that for that to happen, there has to be a connection where we both had the intent to reach out in the same instant. And any little diversion, I mean, if I had stopped to get a drink of water on the way to the phone, I would have missed that moment. Or, you know, if she had decided to let the dog out, you know, before she called me, we wouldn't have had that moment. So something happens. And for that to occur, first of all, there has to be a connection. And interestingly, the Nobel Prize in 2022 was to a physicist. The Nobel Prize in physics was to a physicist who validated this connection and said that there is something called entanglement, a principle of entanglement, where all physical matter, whether it's connected or distant physically, is still entangled energetically. And that's exactly what this is all about. The intuition that stems from our divinity, that intuition speaks to us through our hearts. And when we are in that coherence, we open the door to deep states of intuition. This is the place where you can ask questions about yourself. You know, in a relationship, should I stay or should I go? There's a song in there. Should I stay or should I go? Or in a job or in a career, or a lot of people are asking now, where should I live? Where's a good place for me and my family? And there is no one answer. It's where do you feel that you're best? Where does your heart sing? Where is your soul free? Where is it that you plant your feet on the ground, you look to the sky and you say, this is my home? And it's different for everyone. So if you move out of fear, so I had a friend in the Midwest in 1993 who was afraid of water and afraid of, well, it was in California in 1993. And I don't know if you remember at this time, there were all kinds of predictions that California was going to fall into the ocean. That at least the San Andreas Fault West was going to fall into the ocean. My friend was afraid of water, afraid of drowning, said, you know, this is the last thing I want. Out of fear of losing everything and California falling in the ocean, he moved to the Midwest in 1993. And I don't know if you remember what happened. 93, there were 1,000-year rainstorms, and the flooding was so extensive that the Great Lakes and the along the Mississippi River connected the Great Lakes, the Mississippi, all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico in one continuous body of water, and anything that was on the floodplains was lost. He lost everything in the flood. He was living in Missouri, right on the banks of the Mississippi River, and he lost everything. And the point of that is he made the move not for his love of where he was at his best, but from the fear of what he thought would happen based on other people's fears. So intuition, that was not his intuition, that was his fear. Intuition will lead you to the place that is your home, wherever that is. And the beauty is it's different for everyone. So because we all have different intuitive needs and different intuitive insights. But when you want, so when my mom and I make that connection, that's what's called a spontaneous connection of intuition. And it's cool. And you say, well, that was cool. I wonder if it's going to happen again. And you wait and you wait and you wait until it spontaneously happens again. That's the definition of spontaneity. You don't know when it's going to happen. The key here is that that's the kind of intuition when you most need it. It may be elusive because you are under the stress of the moment. And the beauty of heart-brain coherence is our ability on demand, at will, consciously, to create these conditions, to create, open the door to deep intuition on demand so that we can have the answers to the questions that face us in the moment. For me, that's what was happening when I would arrive at the scene on those accidents. How can I serve? What is this person? And I'm not saying that I was channeling my inner surgeon, or I wasn't doing anything like that. But there were things intuitively when I was in that space. I made choices that I may not have made if I was just freaked out and stressed and, oh my God, this person's going to die. What am I going to do? So this is one of the advantages of opening to heart-brain coherence, the ability to create states of deep intuition on demand.
I find it interesting that you talked about moving and not doing out of fear, because Leah and I's lease is expiring in a few days. So it's a good reminder to be asking our heart, where should we actually go to from here? So
what's your heart telling you?
Oh, I love the ocean. It's so healthy to be by the ocean. So we've been by the ocean for 6 months and it's been so healthy and healing for us. So, the fear is that it was a winter rental, so it costs less during the winter. But the fear is that it's going to be too expensive, but we can find a way to make it work.
Well, God bless you both. Drop me a line. Let me know where you are. So now I can mentally place you not in Maine up there, but in an ocean somewhere else.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We just love to end with, how can our following support you, Gregg? How can they get in touch with your material? What can we do for you?
If you're interested in what I'm doing, you go to the website, everything's there, greggbraden.com. I'd say the best way to support me is to support this world, become the best version of ourselves that we know how to be, and then live that version consciously with intent, day in and day out, to create the best world possible. And I think that's really all we can hope to do for any of us. And I want to thank you both for the work that you're doing, and for we've never worked together, and the truth is you didn't know what I was going to do today. So I'm going to thank you for your trust and inviting me onto your program and sharing me with your community today. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you so much. We have so many more questions, so I hope you come on with us again.
Yeah, it was an
Well,
honor.
we'll call this program number 1,
Yeah.
part 1
Thank you.
And then, so next time we do this, you'll be in your flip-flops at the ocean. And this will be, we'll do, and I'll have my black Speedos. See?
Nice.
Perfect.
Cool. Beautiful.
No, I was trained as a scuba diver back in the 70s, and as a diver, everyone was underwater ocean salvage was the training, and everybody wore tight-fitting gear so it doesn't get caught up in all the wires and the cables and things like that. And I've just always stayed. So people tease me about it, but that's what I wear.
So with your cowboy boots.
You got to have Tony Lama cowboy boots are the best. So Tony Lama boots and black Speedos, man. And our podcast is a hit.
Absolutely.
All right. God bless.
Thank you, Gregg.
Thank you all.
Everyone.
Oh, you're very welcome. And just thank you for your kindness. And I want to say to everyone watching, thanks for sharing a part of your day with us today. We love you all.
We love you all.